The Buffalo Bills wrapped up their second to last training camp practice on Wednesday. Ken Dorsey spoke to the media, and I think we may have gotten some clarity on the offensive guard competition. I am Josh McCarty from Bills Chat. Let's get into all of that right now. Before practice started, the best thing that happened at St. John Fisher today was Bills play by play guy John Murphy was in the house watching the Bills practice. Murph has not been behind the microphone for the Bills since suffering his stroke back in January. We continue to wish John Murphy the very best in his recovery and hope to see him back in the booth ASAP. Dion Dawkins was also back at practice on Wednesday, and that was fantastic news for these Buffalo Bills because he had an injury scare on Monday with his hand. It was in a brace after practice, but the fact that he was already back on the practice field can tell us all that it wasn't that serious. The Bills dodged a bullet because Dion Dawkins is certainly on the very short list of players the Bills can least afford to lose. So that was obviously good news for the offensive line. I mentioned Ken Dorsey talking to the media and the clue we got about the offensive line. I think we are starting to see that Ryan Bates is going to be the starter on opening night against the Jets. And what Ken Dorsey said, I think, was somewhat interesting. He still called it a competition. But to me, the biggest clue from what we saw about this competition is what happened on their day off on Tuesday, the depth chart. When the depth chart was released, positions like linebacker and cornerback and even backup safety, where there's a competition, they didn't list a player in those spots. They put slashes and put it in alphabetical order. Like cornerback was Christian Benford slash Kyer Elam slash Dane Jackson. Well, at offensive guard, it was Ryan Bates first string and then Osiris Torrance second string. And that doesn't have to mean anything. It's an August depth chart. You take all of those with a grain of salt. But then when you combine that with what we're hearing from the folks on site at these practices, that Osiris Torrance has kind of leveled off and he started to struggle, and that's okay. It's August. He's a rookie. You want him to get these mistakes out of his system now. But Ryan Bates has outperformed him, according to those on site. It just feels like now that we are about a month away or less from opening night, the Bills are going to want to settle this thing in, and barring just a super strong performance from Osiris Torrance in the first preseason game, it feels like they're going to want to lock in their starting five sooner rather than later. And right now, feels like that's going to be Ryan Bates. And Osiris Torrance is going to have to earn playing time throughout the season if he wants to get on the field. Other thing that was interesting that Ken Dorsey said was about the wide receiver position and wide receiver three specifically. He was asked a question about if a player is your primary returner, is it something that the offensive coordinator then would hesitate to make him a big part of the game plan as to not overload him? And Dorsey's answer was interesting. He said, if he's just the returner, you don't really worry about it. You might factor it in if he has a long kickoff return. Maybe he's out of gas and you want to spell him for a play or two, but that's about it. But what he said was, if a player is a four-phase special teamer, then you might scale back on the plays you draw up for him and how involved he's going to be in the offense. Well, I think right now it feels like Khalil Shakir is going to be your punt returner. Deontay Hardy is going to be your kick returner, probably. Still a lot of time to decide that. Doesn't sound like those guys are going to be impacted on offense by their role on special teams. But the four-phase special teamer is Trent Sherfield. He's excellent at that. But Trent Sherfield has been the most consistent wide receiver three on this team since camp started, and that even dates back to OTAs when Stephon Diggs was out and Trent Sherfield started developing chemistry with Josh Allen to the point where Josh Allen was calling him out in press conferences as a player that's really impressing him. And while Khalil Shakir has had days where he has drop issues, and Deontay Hardy is having good days, and then you don't really hear from him, Trent Sherfield has been the steady Eddie, the reliable hand. And I sure hope that his ability to help this team on fourth down doesn't take away from the Bills' ability to use him on first, second, and third down, because those are the most important downs. We can find somebody else to cover kicks and block for punts. We need somebody to catch the ball from Josh Allen. I think that will be the priority if Sherfield elevates himself clearly above those guys. It feels like that's the way it's going. But for now, I thought that was interesting and something to keep in the back of your mind as the season rolls on. And speaking of the depth chart, it was notable that Deontay Hardy and Khalil Shakir were the two listed at slot receiver, while Sherfield was listed as a backup boundary receiver. All interesting, doesn't have to mean anything. If Sherfield is somebody they want on the field, they will get him on the field. Tyrell Dotson got the majority of the middle linebacker snaps on Wednesday. Terrell Bernard did mix in. And then at cornerback, it was much of the same with the three guys, Dane Jackson, Christian Benford, and Kyer Elam, all seeing time on the field. Defense dominated the red zone work today as the offense went 1 for 10 in the red zone. Not ideal in a practice setting. Sounds like it was very sloppy offense, bad throws, drops, you name it. It all happened. Is what it is. It's August. You're not going to get upset about it. You know, an offense with Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis and Dawson Knox and Dalton Kincaid and James Cook is going to be probably fine. They had a bad day, at least in the red zone. When they got to 11 on 11, got a lot better. Dawson Knox had a couple explosive plays. Sal Capaccio from WGR made mention that he thinks this is the best camp that Dawson Knox has ever had. And I think when Dalton Kincaid was drafted, the easy thought we all had was, well, this is going to phase out Dawson Knox. He's going to be more of that blocking tight end. And while I think Dawson Knox is going to have that inline work when you look at the distribution of labor among tight ends, he is still an explosive weapon in the passing game. And for this two tight end offense to work, you need that second tight end. Two tight ends is only a matchup problem if both tight ends are matchup problems. And Dawson Knox is not Travis Kelce. He's not Mark Andrews. He's not George Kittle, but he's in that next tier. And him and Dalton Kincaid together is what's going to cause defensive coordinators headaches. So I think Dawson Knox has a real chance to be an unsung hero in this offense. I don't know if his stats are going to be better than Dalton Kincaid. I might predict they're not. But the overall importance to the offense, Dawson Knox is a very, very key contributor to the 2023 Buffalo Bills. Speaking of people who might be unsung heroes to this team, Latavius Murray had a day. The 33-year-old running back had a 70-yard catch and run in 11 on 11. Another explosive play, taking advantage of Damian Harris missing with a leg injury. I think when Latavius Murray was signed, a lot of us thought he was just going to be a practice squad veteran running back. That obviously changed when Nyheim Hines went out for the season. But when you looked at his contract, I think he was always somebody that they had in mind for the 53 even before Hines got hurt. I'm not 100% convinced that it's a slam dunk that Damian Harris is going to be the 1B to James Cook's 1A. I would predict it, but I think there is a world where if Damian Harris misses a week and Latavius Murray continues to make plays and earn the trust of Sean McDermott, Ken Dorsey, Josh Allen, the offensive line, he could easily supplant Damian Harris in this rotation, in this pecking order. He's a productive player that has produced every stop along his NFL journey. And I think this is a guy that, while the total volume of carries this season is probably not going to be overly impactful, there will be moments, games that the Bills are very thankful they have him. And I think this is going to be one of those signings that we look back on and think was a sneaky good one for Brandon Beane. Three other injuries to get into. Ed Oliver still missed with back soreness. Cam Lewis was out with a groin injury, and Jordan Poyer had a rest day. The Bills' final training camp practice will be on Thursday at 9:45 at St. John Fisher, and they have their first preseason game coming up on Saturday against the Indianapolis Colts. Thank you so much for watching. If you're watching on YouTube, please take a moment to subscribe and like. It helps us out so much on our new Bills Chat YouTube channel. I will see you next time on Quick Chat.